You know, every single time that I've had to level up in my life, it started with isolation. I had to go ghost, not in a toxic way, but in a way that just gave me space to shift identities. And if you're going through a season like that right now, I need you to hear this because your isolation isn't punishment, it's just preparation. You see, for me, it always starts the same way. I get this gut feeling that I'm not living up to my own standards, my own potential. I'm not aligned with my vision. I just don't feel like I'm not the man that I know I could be. And that's when I had to pull back. I stopped going out. I stopped answering every text. I stopped saying yes to every invite. Not because I don't care about people, but because I know deep down I need to lock in. Like even right now, people are hitting me up like, bro, let's catch up. It's been a while. And don't get me wrong, I want to, right? I'd love to just go for a drink, catch up with the lads, have a bit of a yarn, but deep down, I know this is a season where I need to be focused. This is a season where I'm in the workshop building the next version of myself. And yeah, it gets lonely. It gets real lonely. You start hearing voices in your head. Oh, am I doing the right thing? Should I just go back to a 9 to 5 in the corporate life? What if I'm wasting my time here? But you know what? I've learned to lean on God in those moments, to pray, to read the word, to remind myself today is all I've got. Tomorrow's not promised. And if I just give today everything, that's enough. One of those first times this happened was back in school. I used to be, I was the nice guy, always the friend, always the funny one. And I couldn't figure out why all the other guys were getting the girls that I wanted. And I was just watching from the sidelines. So you know what I did? I went ghost. I stopped trying to be everywhere, stopped trying to please everyone, and I started studying. I ended up coming across this book, and I picked up Neil Strauss's The Game. I fell down the rabbit hole of pickup artistry, social dynamics, all of it. And that season of isolation, it completely rewired me. I started dressing better. I got a proper haircut, fixed my hygiene. I started working out. And I wasn't just reading theory, I was out there on the front line applying that knowledge. And guess what? Girls started noticing. Not because I was pretending, but because I'd shifted my identity. I wasn't the funny friend anymore. I was the guy who knew he was and just carried himself differently. You see, isolation gave me space to transform. Fast forward a few years, I'm working in a factory, laboring, zero direction, and something inside me said, you know what? I'm not staying here. I'm built for more. So what did I do? I went ghost again. While all the boys were out drinking, I was studying, interview prep, sales training, confidence hacks on YouTube. I was obsessed. I was immersing myself in that world until I felt like I was already living it. I saw myself in an office. I saw myself closing deals. I saw myself making real money. And eventually, I broke through. I landed my first corporate sales role, and that was with zero experience. Why? Because the fire was there. And I'd spent that time in isolation preparing myself to be the man who could actually handle it. And then there was the marathon. I'd always been into training, but just casually, you know. I'd jog here and there, lift some weights, but let's be honest, I wasn't actually serious. And then I set the goal, run a full marathon. And I knew if I was serious, everything had to change. So again, I went ghost. Nights out, cut. Social distractions, cut. I trained, I ate, I slept like I was already a marathon runner. And after months of discipline, I crossed that finish line in 2023. It wasn't just a physical shift, it was proof. When I change my identity, my whole life changes. And now, here I am again. I've climbed the corporate ladder, I've done well for myself, but I know there's another level. And that next level, for me, is entrepreneurship. And that's why I've been isolating again. I've been cutting noise, locking in, building my brand, creating my own systems. And trust me, it's not easy. Some days it's lonely. Some days I just want to quit. Some days I question if I'm fucking crazy, if I'm losing my mind. But I know the pattern by now. Every big transformation in my life started with isolation. This is just another one. Now here's the problem. Most men don't know how to use their isolation. They think going ghost means just scrolling more, numbing out, waiting for life to just change, to be handed to them on a silver platter. Sorry to break it to you, bro. Isolation is practice. It's where you experiment with new habits. It's where you go to build discipline. It's where you forge a new identity before the world ever sees it. Think of it like the gym. You don't grow while you're flexing in the mirror. You grow in the quiet, when nobody's watching, when you're putting in the reps. It's the same thing here. And this is why I built the Masculine Reset, because look, I know how dangerous it can be to drift during the season of isolation. And I wish I had a framework like this back when I was in those shifts. I'll tell you what, it would have saved me so much wasted time. And right now, I'm actually building the full 30-day identity reset, the full transformation system. But I put together that 7-day masculine reset for you guys. It's completely free, 7 days of structure, 7 days of daily action, 7 days of clarity. It's the perfect starting point, I guess, for any man in this exact season, whether you're trying to level up physically, mentally, socially, even spiritually, or all the above. So, if you're in that isolation right now, don't fight it, bro. Don't waste it. You need to use it because your isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. So, click the link below, it's in the description. Grab the free 7-day masculine reset and you know what? Start turning the season into the foundation of your next level. Catch you guys in the next one.